We move on to the company Aris Global Services that provide digitalized home communications. It's represented all over the world in over 85 countries, and it is a global leader within IP network television, where its establishment right here in Linköping plays a major part. General Manager Paul Bermingham, most welcome.
Good morning. Lovely to be here. An honor, I think, from Sten Gunnar, except I just realized I'm between you and the coffee break. So I'll wonder about that offer a little bit later. So good morning. I am Managing Director of General Instrument, a name formerly connected to Motorola, formerly connected to, as Michael said previously, creActive. So isn't it strange, really, that the world goes around? We're part of a science park. We're here through our acquisitions, maybe as much as 14 years. And yet, along the way, we link ourselves to international companies like Motorola or Google, which has happened in the last 2 years, and now Aris. And of course, like the science parks, and like science parks everywhere, it's the biggest secret on earth. We're the #1 provider of consumer, or if you like, home equipment for telecommunication providers, for things like the TV that you see in your home, or anything on an IP backbone. And yet, how many people would know the name Aris? In this, we share a problem. How do you market and sell science parks? How do you get that growth, both organically within the science park and inorganically from international companies wanting to come? How do you attract them? So I've put some thoughts together. They're perhaps a little random. Stan has tried to coach me on the weekend and late last night at about 1 a.m., but I've left it exactly as it was. He says I won't finish in 10 minutes, but I'm Irish, so it's quite likely that I will. So, okay, knowledge transfer, and we could spend the next 3 hours discussing value applied knowledge. For me, I'm a commercial person. I've been in development of product for 34 years, various different companies. So getting that knowledge and turning it into something useful, but we could start to debate what is useful, what is value. That's not what we're here. We're trying to understand how can we turn it into something that does have a value, and how does it relate backwards. So I'm interested in that feedback loop, that supply chain that delivers a sets of research to value elements. How do you convert that? How do you get that to applied stuff? How do you put that stuff into the marketplace? And then how do you learn? Because the biggest element that we do inside large commercial companies is try to understand when we fail. So failure is an opportunity to learn, but of course the old one is true. You can not discover that, and therefore you will fail. So creating value, fair enough. We use a ton of metrics. Probably a little bit more than Jane said, sorry. But we use a ton of metrics. Why? Because we actually want to learn what we did right, what we did wrong, and how is it going. And that's important to us, but at the end I'm going to suggest that maybe it's not as important as you think it should be. Sometimes the easiest things to measure, management get lots of reports on, and then drive areas that are part really somehow mediocre. They're not going to change the world, but they're going to make what you do a bit more efficient and productive, so they have a part to play. This is my favorite. I love the little guy in the bottle. But seriously, sometimes we don't do marketing well. And I mean us as companies, as international organizations, and definitely science parks. Like the secret of Aris, I didn't even know Mjärdevi Science Park existed until I got here. In fact, I came for the coffee, and I'm recognizing that I'm still holding you away from the coffee break, so I'll move on quickly. So I think we would be, if we concentrate a little bit, and I know there's some work on this in the Netherlands, I think in Leiden and also in Amsterdam Science Parks, in terms of understanding how do we equip both incubators and even existing organizations in a science park with some skills around sales and marketing. I was delighted when somebody said about sales earlier. So it could be a great place to work, could be a reason to be here, but who knows about it? So if you're not creating a funnel of attractiveness, and you're not trying to make other people aware that this is a good place to be, how are you actually going to get them to come here? Performance measure, return on ideas as opposed to return on investment. And we return on investment, believe me, my finance guy will make sure that one of my legs is tied to some kind of a ball and chain, and every quarter he shows me the ball and says it isn't big enough. But return on ideas, a wider principle. Because, let's envisage 20 years from now. Maybe it's not a physical proximity science park. Maybe it's an intellectual proximity science park. Maybe I've got 2 or 3 of my guys who have left and set up a small company in Linköping in a garage. Maybe they're writing software for gaming, which happens to transfer back into the backbone of IP television. Or maybe it's a completely different idea. What if they're working out of a container, like a physical shipping container? But I'm using that particularly because containerization of information flow is becoming a topic about how do you get it so that it's the same and it can move quickly around the world, move in the same manner, be usable. So what if it was open intellectual property? What if these people were writing towards an open type of service? So I'm not saying we get there now, but I'm saying keep your minds open to the idea that this may not be a physical science park in the future. Back to the reality. What would I measure? Apart from coffee, which I said to Sten Gunnar, at least 17 cups a day. He thought that was excessive. I thought I hadn't got to lunch yet. Rate of patent generation per month. So how would we measure in the existing system something that would deliver a value that we could measure backwards, and then we could trend it, and then we could measure it against each other? Dollar attracted for venture capital or generated revenue. If we're actually not attracting the fuel to drive this thing, then what else would you want to measure? So don't get lost in middle order metrics that measure how good you're doing as a science park. Think about how does it get to the customer and what's the feedback from the customer. So how does it create value for the customer? So what's the perception of value in the marketplace for the ideas that we generate in our science parks? So the usual stuff, you guys would know this, but I'm putting it in this particular way. Critical mass, absolutely. If we're involved in the same industry, like IPTV here, then it really does help. We have companies that work with us all the way. Okay, some part is contractual, some part is NDA, some part is sharing ideas. I think some of it is, in fact, as Michael says, in the queue when the Collegium was opened. But build success, fair enough. Demonstrate and communicate an attractive proposition. So you're going to take those achievements and you're going to say, well, we've got this, this, and this, and we've done this, and this is a reason why you should be here. So we could build on that. We can communicate that clearly, and then for the existing tenants in the university, we can build on the previous success. We can take existing success, go to the market, say, did it work really well? Yes. Then bring it back in as part of our marketing image. So change from managing the services as a landlord to creation of knowledge and fostering collaboration. And I say deliberately in an agile way because there's elements of the software industry that we can learn about in the way that they develop product, in the way that they communicate, and the way that they market. So, connected generation, I've mentioned it and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I mentioned it again. We really need to understand what a connected generation is. So you're talking about an Internet of Things. You're talking about people who, it's like ubiquitous computing. People in this generation will quite happily in the next 5 to 10 years have equipment talk to each other in the home. They're happy doing computing on smartphones as well as laptops, on the movement, as well as in offices. They don't have to be in a science park. They don't have to be in what we call a workplace. So think about what that might look like. So one idea, kind of goofy idea. Now, it wasn't quite the one at 1 o'clock in the morning, Sten Gunnar. Apologies, this was slightly earlier, so I have no excuses. What about European Science Park having an app? What about you could go into that and you could look up information, basic information, could be touristy, logistics type standard information that would want you to get to use the app, but along the way it also heavily emphasizes the achievements of specific areas. So you could select what science area you're interested in, and it would point you towards particular science park, particular areas of expertise. Now, why would I say something as goofy as an app? Because instead of just you trying to be the marketing communication agent, you use all the people in this room, all the people in the university, all the employees in this park who have a pyramid network of friends and colleagues around the world, and you extend the reach of your messaging. You can then start to monitor it. You can understand how people respond to it, how they react to it, what are they looking at, why. And you can let's say you can go through phases of this and build out a marketing plan. So, goofy idea, yes, but I want you to think about what it might mean in terms of marketing for science parks at a European level. So, we develop soft support skills. I think we do the hard skills really well. I think there's a brilliant example here of soft support skills. Even when I don't want Sten Gunnar to turn up, he does. So it's brilliant. Attract like-minded collaborators, clearly. Because if we're all in the same industry, the translation of technology as a language is easier. Achieve critical mass, sure. And you need that. Because if you don't have that, then it's somebody else's business. It's not yours. You're playing at the edges. Market the achievements and the success. Continuously, repeatedly, reuse. Create virtual collaboration to generate sticky know-how. For me, that's the companies that are here right now that we know in the IPTV industry. It's a mixture of experience and expertise. It could be small clusters and big clusters loosely connected to each other, but you're beginning to create something that makes people want to stay in a place, either physically or part of the science community that you create, even if it's a virtual community. Be an ideas lord, as opposed to a landlord. So, in the next 25 years, I do believe this will change. But I do see a place for the physical science parks. I just think we've got to extend it beyond the physical boundaries that we see now today. Today, it's about making available land for people to do something, make available place of collaboration, making a place of revenue streams available. In the future, it could be very different from that. It may be that 3 or 4 people have an idea or a product, a service, that actually could go international without them having to expand to a 200 or 300 people company. And that's it. I managed to stay within the 10 minutes. Told you I would.
Thank you, Paul. Well, close enough for 10 minutes, but we're good. Thank you so much. Interesting. Well, in parts a paradigm shift, really, with virtual science parks, but to the core, enlarging the concept of what a science park really is. And also thank you for adding the marketing to this and what leverage you can actually create through science parks.